I know, I'm a little late to the party, but I would like to analyze what happened between iDubbbz and H3 in recent months once again, because this whole situation, and especially Content Cop video itself, is so absurd to me. This video... arguments are illogical. Theme of this video makes no sense. iDubbbz says something and then in the next sentence he contradicts himself. It's very hard to analyze something so chaotic, but I think I managed to put it reasonably together to show you how many errors his narrative has. And hopefully it will give you a chance to rethink certain details of this whole situation. Let's start 2 years ago. Ian released a video titled I Miss the Old iDubbbz. In the video, he says that the way he acted in his old videos no longer reflected who he is. There are a few interesting moments in this video that I'd like to go through. In the second minute, he admits that he had no right to moralize or judge others.
I was morally grandstanding and acting as if I am any better than any of these people that I was making Content Cop videos on. I'm a real human who makes mistakes, and I make a different set of mistakes than the people I was making videos on. I don't think anyone deserves that level of cruelty or hate.
He informed his viewers that he was unlisting his previous Content Cop videos.
I'd like to unlist the videos. I feel like that's the best solution, at least for the time being. You can like content, but you can also think that it's irresponsible and it's hurting other people.
He apologizes to all the people targeted in his Content Cop videos, expressing deep remorse.
I'm sorry to everyone that I made Content Cop videos on. I still don't like the majority of you, but I can recognize that you did not deserve the hate and harassment that I sent your way.
Oh yeah, and this strange moment. I can't help but think it will become handy in understanding this whole situation.
In closing, I want to say that I have always thought that I was an empathetic person, but I never did. I think only in these past couple of years have I gained the ability, empathy. It sounds really pathetic to say at the age of 32 I've acquired empathy, but I have, and I've realized it because I just can't help myself but feel for other people's pain and suffering now.
He just can't help himself. I remember Ian got quite a bit of criticism for that video. I think it was mainly the decision to unlist previous Content Cop videos that caused confusion. Nobody was pushing for that and it just felt unnecessary. Personally, I liked the video when it came out. He made things clear. He explained how his views had changed, how his approach to making content had evolved, and why he no longer wanted to be associated with his past work. If people change, content changes too. It was a mature move to address that publicly. The issue, however, is that in this video he apologizes for certain behaviors that seems to have resurfaced again. To understand the most recent Content Cop, we need to talk a bit about the atmosphere surrounding the H3 podcast at that time. For more than a year now, there has been this growing tension between H3 crew and what they call their enemies. After October 7th, Ethan took on the role of someone who speaks out against dehumanization of Jewish community, partially caused by the Israeli government's actions. He expressed this many times before, but I think that in this episode he explained his perspective most clearly, even though he looks like Deadpool from X-Men Origins or as if he just turned back from his Titan form.
When the massacre happened on October 7th and terrorists came into Israel and slaughtered 1,300 people, there was a lot of people though that were cheering on Hamas explicitly. A lot were doing it explicitly, just saying hey, this is what a revolution looks like. And there was a lot of people who said, as the bodies were, still being counted, Israel hadn't done anything in response. It was the same day. They were still cleaning up. People don't want to hear about timing, but I'm just telling you my perspective. As the news broke, before expressing condolences or horror, it was Free Palestine. Now I'm Free Palestine. You can say Free Palestine. But the timing to me made me uncomfortable. It seemed like they were cheering on Hamas. But somehow it's never the time to dispel this really violent, anti-Semitic rhetoric that's causing riots. Synagogue leader over the weekend was stabbed and killed. So it's incredible to me that people think I shouldn't care about these things, because now's not the time. I believe that the time is good for all spaces of offering civilians your empathy, your caring, your understanding. I don't believe that, I need to wait for you all to tell me now's the time. And whenever that is, probably never, frankly, probably never. They go, and what's happening in Gaza is also horrible. Like, if I don't say anything, then they say, he didn't post anything about Gaza. If I do fucking say anything, then it's like, he didn't say enough. Now is not the damn time to talk about slain Israeli citizens whose deaths are being forgotten and minimized.
Many people accuse Ethan of not criticizing Israel harshly enough, despite understanding the conflict well. People claim that he focused more on the suffering of the innocent Israelis than Palestinians. And they also have a problem with him criticizing pro-Palestinian voices. All of that and propaganda of his haters led to him being labeled as Zionist or even Israeli propagandist. The difference in perspectives also led to the collapse of leftovers, which eventually resulted in Ethan posting a content nuke on Hassan. This in turn caused Hassan and his orbiters to pay more attention to Ethan's content, and he gained a whole new crowd of haters. As time went on, attacks on H3 show became more personal and more coordinated. We are talking about doxing Teddy Fresh employees, spreading organized disinformation, leaking the H3 studio location, threatening specific staff members, and even getting visited by the FBI. They even received real human skulls in the mail. Well, to be fair, Ian didn't know about the skulls while making Content Cop. Maybe if he knew, he would understand a bit better what H3 crew is dealing with.
I don't know. I thought the skulls thing was kind of humorous to hear that.
It all reached tipping point when CPS showed up at Ethan's home. That moment changed Ethan, or at the very least, gave him a reason to stop holding back. But the first public call-out Ethan made towards Ian and Anissa actually happened shortly before the CPS visit. It all started with Froggy Tonic,
who is a previous editor and friend of Anissa and iDubbbz,
who had been repeatedly accusing Ethan of things like endangering his kids or killing his dogs.
and obviously blaming me for killing my beloved pet. And then extrapolating meaning to somehow say I'm abusing my kids. There's actually no limit to their cruelty. Anyway, this guy was saying shit like that Hila's a Nazi, that she kills kids, that she went on she's a IDF baby killer, all this types of shit. And that's showing up right up on Anissa's and iDubbbz feed. My good fucking friends who I stood by after all these fucking years can't find a spine to speak up. You know why? Because they'll get murdered for saying one goddamn fucking thing in our defense. Like, actually, Hila's not a baby killer. Actually, accusing Ethan of killing his dog is maybe too far.
But to be fair, despite the criticism, Ethan also said some kind words about them, and not in the past tense.
I've stood by them when all the internet hated them because I love those guys. I vouched for their character, and I stood by them 100%. And listen, I'm not saying that they're not the good, nice, fine people that I thought they were, but I'll say this: I don't think they're fucking any friends of mine. That's what I'll say at this moment. And certainly, I don't think they're any fucking friends of mine based on the text conversation I had with them too before I even talked about it. So I have nothing. I don't need any fucking halfway friends, man. That's not what I need.
The key thing is that Ethan went public with that problem, and that gave the conflict a completely different scale. iDubbbz's silence didn't carry the same weight as Ethan's public disapproval. In the end, Ethan's call-out triggered a snowball effect. What began as a small personal disappointment quickly escalated into large-scale public drama. Later in that episode, Lena, who was supposed to fight in Creator Clash 3, was brought up.
By the way, speaking of which, I just want to voice my support for Lena. The way that they have it set up is basically, if Lena were to drop out, she would have to pay back like $25,000 or something like insane. And besides that, right, which I told her I would cover if she wanted to drop out. Besides that, she's working really hard. And just because I'm having an issue with what's going on here, I 100% support her. I want her to fight. I want to watch her fight. She deserves to have that fight. She's trained hard, and she deserves to have her moment and to enjoy that experience. Okay, so I don't want anybody judging Lena for participating in that. I support her, and I insisted to her that she continues.
Bringing up Lena into the whole conflict publicly and the whole situation put her in a very awkward position. Had this been handled privately, It still would be awkward, but surely it would be less stressful for Lena. Once Ethan said it publicly, he invited thousands of people to this situation. And for someone as sensitive as Lena seems to be, it must have been overwhelming. Ethan's critique of iDubbbz wasn't that cruel, but it was public and clear enough to shape the reality that followed. What started as a personal rift was now everybody's business. Two days later, H3 Podcast aired an episode where Ethan and Ila talked about the unexpected CPS visit. Something that should have never happened, because regardless of what you think about them, CPS had no business being at their home. The entire episode, over 3 hours long, is mostly about the incident and the emotions surrounding it. Out of all of that, they talk about Ian and Anissa for about 15 minutes.
And our other good friends,
Yeah.
Anissa and Ian. Yeah. Thanks, Anissa, for standing up for your girl. I actually stood up for you so many times, because, like, why would I not? It was crazy. It was crazy. People were shitting on you and Ian because you did OnlyFans. Of course I was going to stand by you. That's insane. It's absolutely insane and disgusting. But now you choose to hang out with people that would have a problem with you if you defended me. So,
The problem.
okay, if you want to hang out with those people and have no spine and not stand up for another girl that stood up for you, enjoy your new friends. Okay, do you have
Agreed.
anything else to say for your friends, though?
Just say he doesn't.
Like-
They say something like he doesn't work for me, and I strongly disagree, and I support Ethan and Ila. The problem is
The problem is that she doesn't.
that's the problem.
That's the problem.
She actually.
She thinks they have a point.
That's the problem.
Yeah, so go fuck yourself.
I agree.
So yeah, Ethan and Ila just call them spineless cowards again. They make it pretty clear. We are not friends with you anymore. Still, they also say some kind words too.
They're very gracious, nice people that like we have a lot of memories with. Me and Ian have made a ton of content together, and people that I really consider my friend. And we would talk about private things. We would get together. We would go hang out at our house, go for meals and stuff. And like we were really friends. But at this point, there's no room in my life for halfway friends. Or even 90% friends.
So essentially, it's the same message, just with a little more elaboration this time. Ethan expected some public support from Ian and Anissa, even a simple tweet. I can imagine that might feel awkward, but it's not exactly a huge request when someone considers you a friend.
Just saying it only privately, but nothing publicly, is just not gonna cut it for me right now, unfortunately. If you can't show support for me publicly, then it tells me there's a problem with you and your crowd. Like, if your crowd is the kind of crowd that will not hang with you because you'll show support to me,
Listen, there's
it's
a lot
fine.
of
I'll be fine without you.
Okay, let's break down what happened so far. Let's summarize that. Ian and Anissa being friends with people who constantly aggressively insult Ethan and Ila, like Froggy Tonic. Ian and Anissa offering no public support during a time when Ethan and Ila felt under attack from all sides. Ethan and Ila then publicly calling them spineless, saying they are no longer friends. I'm listing all this out because, rewatching those clips, I keep on asking myself, was this enough to break all his principles he said he stood for in I Miss the Old iDubbbz video? Was this enough to record 2 hours long content cop on H3? Something doesn't add up here. Ian and Anissa addressed Ethan's and Ila's comments on their own podcast. Yes, they do have a podcast, and I've got to admit, they start decently. At least it gives the impression of calm, measured response, like they are taking a step back and understanding that Ethan and Ila are going through something rough.
Ethan's upset with, I think, some of our connections, and we've tried to reach out to Ethan to talk privately. Basically, it just seems like we're at a bit of an impasse. So we want to stay out of the drama as much as possible. We don't want to pile on and add to anything. So this is our, lukewarm addressing of it.
We don't condone harassment.
We don't
kind.
condone harassment of any kind.
Of any kind. Okay, period. Which is why we have not stuck our foot in any of this, because it is not productive. I don't think it's helpful, and these are real people who have real feelings.
I think harassment online is like, we felt it. We felt plenty of it.
Yeah.
And You know, that's kind of why there's been a shift in my content, is because it's not fucking healthy for people's brains, and it like doesn't get you anywhere. Like, I would make, you know, a couple videos, the content cop and the content deputy, and then I would say, okay, I'm done, I'm out of here, let me leave this.
Yeah.
And it was done for me. For me, it was done. It was not done for the people who watched my videos. It was not done for the person who was being harassed.
They don't sound like people who are planning on making a content cop. Everything they say still fits into this I miss the old iDubbbz persona. So why did they decide to flip the table? Ethan didn't talk about them much after this point and before the content cop. So what happened? Later, Anissa brings up the Etika situation, a creator who struggled with serious mental health issues.
I hate bringing it up, but Etika. The Etika stuff was so hard for me, right? Like, that was somebody who clearly was experiencing a mental health issue. And the last thing that they needed, and this is my attitude, like, full stop on this period. The last thing somebody who's going through something like that needs is more eyes on it. And more, like, people weighing in, right? And, like, that's why I'm kind of angry that we even have to, like, talk about it here.
And she says that the last thing he needed was more people watching, more eyes on him, more pressure. And yet, weeks later, you started working on a content cop about someone you insist is having a mental breakdown. So, you are aware of the pattern, you've seen what can happen, and you still decided to go through with it. So, the only logical conclusion is, you want Ethan Klein to kill himself.
Not having the tools, like, emotionally, psychologically.
Yeah.
But it's also having the support system.
Yes.
Family.
Predictable schedule, hobbies,
Therapy.
all these things.
Yeah, that's great. And also, friends.
Alright, time for the main reason this video exists, and also my personal hell. Not only because I had to watch it ungodly number of times, but god damn, this is such a poorly constructed video. I mean, no logic, no jokes, no insightful commentary, nothing. It feels like a messy brain dump of ideas. Random things he maybe wanted to say, thrown together without any structure. In a weird way, I actually admire the courage, the confidence, the ability to just publish something so unpolished. Especially when you've already built a name for yourself and know that thousands of eyes will be on you. But maybe the same confidence gave Ian the illusion that his name alone will be enough to convince the viewer. So why bother trying? Why research anything? And I guess when video gets 7 million views, it's easy to convince yourself that what you made was at least decent. But I don't think it was.
Wake me up! Wake me up inside! I can't wake up! Save me! Wake up!
This video has 2 intros, because apparently one wasn't cringe enough. Okay, the first intro. We see Ian presented as some kind of repulsive goblin while he's watching the H3 podcast. And here's the first weird thing. The clip they picked from the H3 podcast shows Ethan talking about the hate campaign he's been dealing with lately.
They will attempt to ruin their lives. And once again, I'm the crazy one.
And that's what supposedly triggers Ian to start working on a content cop? Feels like a subconscious self-report. From a viewer's perspective, it kinda seems like Ian made the content cop because Ethan hate was trending. Sure, maybe I'm reading into it too much. But it's still odd. Why not choose a clip where Ethan actually insults Ian or Anissa? It's like Ian's pretending this isn't personal. Just some neutral critique of a distant public figure. Then we get something for the old school Fred fans. And off he goes. Now the second intro, which doesn't really connect to the first one at all. And this intro, oh boy, it's a nightmare.
Wakey, Ethan.
Wake up, Ethan, wake up!
I think it might be the worst thing I saw online in a decade.
Time to be awake, Ethan.
Wake up.
I think Ian's not trying to be funny here, because he can be funny, he's proven that before, but here, he's actively trying to be the most annoying person in the galaxy.
This is no longer a dream. This is a nightmare. Wake up.
You mean that video is a nightmare? In that case, I agree. That checks out.
I'm not gonna do a react content yet, chat.
Also, maybe it's just me, but isn't it kind of in poor taste to clown around in a scarf of the Free Palestine movement? Feels disrespectful, but maybe I'm expecting too much from a room full of these people.
Wake up. Ethan. Wake up, Ethan.
I feel gross watching this, like physically dirty. These facial expressions, they feel almost self-harming. I think kids who hit themselves make faces like that. Look at those tensed up muscles and that jaw. Dude's about to snap his neck or shatter his teeth from all this pressure. I refuse to believe there's a person on this earth who watched this intro and didn't get secondhand embarrassment. This isn't something his career should recover from. It's worse than any slurs he ever said. Imagine Ian directing this shit. You know, positioning people, giving stage directions, telling them what they're gonna do next. The behind the scenes of this intro must be gold. Please God, let it leak someday. Please. Okay, it's over and... Huh? Why is he gasping for air? Oh, I get it. This scene was supposed to come right after that scene. Interesting. Interesting.
If I would imagine this in 2016, I would have been like, oh yeah, if I ever do that, it's gotta be because I lose the plot. Well, it turns out it's not me losing the plot, it's Ethan. He's the one who fucking attacked first.
In this video, Ian does everything he can to expose his own inner thought process, accidentally showing the intent behind every word. For example, in the introduction, Ethan is crazy. And what's the proof that he is crazy? Him criticizing Ian. So he is crazy because he criticized you? Ian then explains who H3 is and touches on the falling out between Ethan and Hassan.
Reckon with a very serious topic. I would say that Hassan was very well equipped to talk about that topic.
Palestinian people living in the West Bank are subjected to these horrific conditions, horrific living conditions by the state of Israel, America's greatest ally and the only democracy in the Middle East, if you ask Republicans and even liberals. Israeli settlers are trying to evict Palestinian families in occupied East Jerusalem. The United Nations says that that may be a war crime. It literally is.
I was just eating the toppings. The pizza looked like a burn victim. It was all disgusting.
How low do you have to sink, or how weak your arguments must be to resort to this kind of manipulation? Or maybe the better question is, how little respect do you have for your own viewers if you think this will convince them? But actually, this proves just how eager you are to protect one specific person, someone you defend multiple times throughout the video and portray in the best light possible.
Because I don't know if I want to be streaming when fucking Hassan's streaming. But I also might want to stream while Hassan's streaming because he deserves like a little competition. Especially if people see me as like the white Hassan.
Palestinian people living in the West Bank are subjected to these horrific conditions, horrific living conditions by the state of Israel, America's greatest ally and the only democracy in the Middle East, if you ask Republicans and even liberals.
We promised monogamous sex. I thought we promised monogamous sex.
Israeli settlers are trying to evict Palestinian families in occupied East Jerusalem. The United Nations says that that may be a war crime. It literally is.
Yeah, I just sharted. What the fuck are you gonna do? Arrest me? This is America. I can literally shart wherever the fuck I want.
Honestly, I understand the strong criticism of Ethan, but what's with the Hassan glazing? It's almost as if you feel defensive for him. It's unnecessary and, frankly, a little bit embarrassing. You yourself say they hosted a comedy podcast together, so not everything Hassan says is serious. And you also show a thumbnail from one of their most serious Leftovers episodes, where they both discuss this difficult issue. And that means that Ethan is also able to have serious conversation. So clearly, both of them are capable of being funny and having nuanced conversation. But you know that. I guess truth doesn't interest you when you have narrative to push. Then comes a shining example of Ian's deep understanding of the conflict. He throws in a bunch of random headlines over the clip that could easily be criticized for being in poor taste. Yet, even though Ian later claims that Ethan is one-sided and pro-Israel, he avoids going into any real detail.
To show you guys how I see Israel, because you don't see that. When you listen to Hassan and you hear all these fucking mega lefties talking about it like it's some super racist, crazy, like Jim Crow style in society. Like, I can't wait to show you guys.
Oh, and then there's also that infamous clip.
The other day, Bibi fired a really good guy that a lot of people are pissed about.
The one Ethan and Hila have publicly apologized for.
I do understand that was not a good choice of words, and I would not have said that again. So I'm stepping away for a little while from being on camera and being on the podcast.
Of course, you can still criticize them for things they apologized, but that, Ian, puts you in a very awkward position. Because if you're going to hold people accountable for things they've already apologized for, then guess what? You will forever be racist, bigoted, N-word guy. And just for the record, those clips Ian used, obviously he didn't find them himself. That's why the clips are such poor quality, and that's why he clearly doesn't understand their context. A video that actually critiques Ethan's political biases could have been genuinely interesting. But Ian, he's swinging a sword he's not strong enough to carry. And that just makes Ethan even less open to criticism in that matter. Because if the critique has no real weight to it, then it's that much easier to shrug off. Later in the video, Ian builds this idea of Ethan as someone who actively looks for enemies.
He's finding new people every day, basically, to get in fights with.
Of all people, this guy, Matt Lieb, Frogan and Denims and all these dipshits, and everybody thinks this guy's awesome, apparently. Even though he looks like Milhouse, fucking dork. Denims, by the way, was the real villain of the video.
Apparently, Ian was shocked that Ethan is a person who criticizes others and gets into conflicts. Something that Ethan has never done before. Ever. Totally new behavior. He built this narrative, I guess, to argue that Ethan keeps burning bridges with people.
And it's all culminated, at least for my story, in Ethan burning bridges with people until he burned the bridge with me.
At least for my story.
Yeah, in your story. And just in your story. In your bullshit narration. Ethan is burning bridges? Beside Hassan and you, there were no bridges with any of those other people. He just burned bridges with you, and ironically, in the very next sentence, you confirm that he was right to do so.
Since Ethan and Hassan's falling out, I've been keeping to myself mostly. I don't have many nice things to say.
So you basically disliked him ever since then? So Ethan was right. You didn't want to have anything to do with him anymore. Then why make this video at all? This is exactly what Ethan's called you out on. So why do you feel hurt and defensive? Then Ian moves on to the Froggy Tonic situation.
I discovered him because he was in the circles online that I was in. And one of those circles is an H3 fan. There would be an occasional Froggy tweet where I'd be like, I agree with that, you know? Like, I'm not going to endorse it. I'm not going to retweet it or like it.
But here's something that blew my mind. Froggy was slandering Hila, spreading misinformation.
Some truly mean shit. He called Hila the C word. He said they're trying to kill their dog with cheddar cheese and a bunch of other shit, I'm sure. Ethan, at some point, discovers that iDubbbz' former editor says this horrendous shit about him and Hila.
And Ian asks, but wait, did you think who told Ethan about Froggy Tonic?
But no one's asking the question, where does Ethan get this information from?
Of course, no one thought about that because it doesn't matter. But Ian thinks he found a great insight to this whole story. Somehow he is more concerned about who is telling the truth than the truth itself. So Ian starts guessing where Ethan could have found out about Froggy Tonic. As if that matters. Theorizes with complete confidence that Ethan probably found it while scrolling Twitter.
You see, it would be very obviously a problem if Ethan was discovering this content by scrolling through Twitter looking for something to upset himself with.
What a brilliant theory from Ian. It would be crazy if he found a tweet about him on Twitter. Sadly, it's probably not the case because he is no longer on Twitter, so let's see what another brilliant theory Ian has for us.
He has maybe set it up in such a way where his employees feel the need to send him this information, and that would be horrible. They shouldn't be doing that.
Do you have any proof that they do so? You're saying random shit at this point. You know that imagination isn't good evidence for something, right? You can't be that deluded. Also, why exactly his coworkers shouldn't tell him when some ex-employee of his friend slanders him publicly? This video could be shown in universities as a textbook case of strawman argument. My head hurts. from a sheer number of strawman arguments in this video.
Why is there so much work being put into discovering this guy on Twitter who's barely getting any interactions, linking him to me and posting on the Reddit, when there's no work being put into who the fuck is the person on the Reddit who's posting this in the first place?
Why, Ethan? Why? Why would you care more about Ian's former employee who slanders you publicly than some random Redditor on H3 subreddit who reposted it? I think Ian is really unable to understand why, which is pretty concerning. And the best part is, we don't even know if that's how Ethan found out about Froggy Tonic. For all we know, it's some random post on H3 subreddit. But Ian is obsessing about who the guy is, even though he's probably not connected to this story whatsoever.
If you do a little bit of research, it seems like it's an account whose intention is to make Ethan crash out. One of the users on the Snark Reddit points this out. They're like, I've seen this account before. This account has scraped its history, and it's now trying to make Ethan burn bridges. This is within Ethan's own community. Like, this is the thing that he needs to be critical of. It's not me.
You're building a strawman by suggesting that it was that one post which made Ethan criticize your former employee. Then you start picking apart details from it to discredit him, and even those details don't make any sense. I really don't know anymore. I feel like he's spiraling into fantasy he invented. He's trapped in a delusion of his own making. And then it gets even better, because he talks about how they should have researched the person, even if they're telling the truth, just to understand their intentions. And yet you yourself use as evidence a random opinion taken from H3 Snark subreddit.
One of the users on the Snark Reddit points this out.
I mean, it's irony after irony after irony. The pace at which this video contradicts itself is just beyond me. I mean, it's like Ian is forgetting what he said in a previous sentence before starting the next one. If we actually follow Ian's suggestion to do a little bit of research on that person, you know, the one who probably has nothing to do with this situation, we'll find that their account, like many others, simply posts updates about people mentioned on the H3 podcast. Positive and negative, there's nothing there suggesting manipulation or rage baiting. They haven't wiped their history either.
An insane harassment group. It's not bad enough that I have this group of people harassing me and everyone in my life. It's that people outside of this group, journalists, creators, are actively participating in this gaslighting to make it seem like I'm fucking crazy.
I mean, I don't know what he's getting at here. Like, yeah, people are gaslighting you. A lot of people gaslit me when I apologized. That was actually like the #1 type of harassment I got.
I really like this clip because it shows what Ian's idea of empathy looks like. You have a problem? Well, I had a similar one once and I dealt with it. So get over it.
Like, yeah, people are gaslighting you. A lot of people gaslit me. That was actually like the #1 type of harassment I got, was people gaslighting me.
By the way, you know who stood up for you when you were being gaslit and struggling? You've guessed it. Your former friend, Ethan Klein. But remember, if someone expects support in return, that means that friendship is fake. It was all transactional.
I've probably done and stood by iDubbbz and Anissa more than anybody. I've stood by them when all the internet hated them.
I don't like that Ethan brought this up because it makes the relationship feel very transactional. Like, you know, we're just meant to support each other online despite our own personal morals or principles.
Frankly, I think it's disgusting that Ethan wants support from his friends.
As much as you don't want halfway friends, I also don't want that kind of halfway friend. I don't want someone who's going to give me like an ultimatum to have a conversation.
Okay, we get it. Ethan doesn't want friends like you and you don't want friends like him. That's it. That's the whole story actually. Every other argument in this video just orbits around that central truth, that you just don't want to be friends with Ethan because of who he is and what he believes. But why do you feel the need to publicly justify that for an hour with dance numbers and a presentation of evidence? Is this some kind of manifestation of your guilt?
Could you not say something when this is like, imagine like one of you guys is like, Hassan actually wants to go to Israel, go to Gaza so he can strangle Israeli babies or some shit like that. I'd be like, you imagine me not saying something.
You're trying to make a one-to-one comparison where there isn't one. This guy that I follow on Twitter is not in the same relationship as you and one of your current employees. At one point during this stream, Ethan and Hila bring up Adam McIntyre.
I never even stood by him when he talked bad about Trisha having a kid and called him like the spawn of Satan.
Huh. It's almost like that is a fucking identical situation to me.
I cut down this 3-minute section like that just to show you how hard it is to analyze this video. First, Ian says that you can't compare this situation one-to-one. Then, 2 seconds later, when it suits him, he suddenly finds perfect comparison. And not only that, but he draws a comparison to something even less similar than Ethan's example. Let's break it down. Ethan's point was this. If Froggytonic publicly spreads lies and insults about Ila and Ian says nothing, that's the same as if an H3 employee would publicly spread disinfo about Hassan and Ethan wouldn't say anything. Not exactly a one-to-one comparison. Froggy no longer works for Ian and the H3 crew is a much tighter team. So yeah, Ian's right, it's not totally equal. But now let's see what Ian thinks is equal. He compares it to Ethan's former employee's old friend, publicly insulting Ethan's former friend, and claims that's the same thing. He ignores that this person isn't his employee, isn't even his former employee, and that Trisha wasn't even friends with Ethan at that time. And then Ian goes on to build the entire argument based on that nonsense comparison. Okay, here's one of my favorite parts of the video. Ian shows clips of Ila saying she expected support from Anissa.
That's insane. It's absolutely insane and disgusting. But now you choose to hang out with people that would have a problem with you if you defended me.
And Ian's response? Basically, well, we're not going to support her because she is Jewish and from Israel. Yeah, I know, sounds impossible to say out loud, but he kind of did. Let's break this moment down. First, we get an important lecture on Anissa's background. Even though she's from Canada, she has roots in Lebanon and Ireland. So she apparently knows all about genocide and therefore is hyper aware of Israeli propaganda. Which is why, in Ian's logic, defending Ila isn't an option, because she said one thing they labeled as Israeli propaganda.
I'm not going to assume that Ila knows, but I'll say it for anyone who doesn't know. Anissa is half Lebanese and half Irish. Anissa is very well familiar with the propaganda and the shit coming out of Israel. Choosing now, out of all the times, to be like, please defend me. No, we're not going to fucking defend you.
And again, just say it clearly. You just don't want to be friends with someone who is from Israel. At least, not right now.
Choosing now, out of all the times, to be like, please defend me.
Why even hide behind these vague political excuses? Well, sorry we couldn't defend you. Actually, my wife is half Irish. What are you talking about? Who are you talking to?
I'm not going to assume that Ila knows, but I'll say it for anyone who doesn't know. Anissa is half Lebanese and half Irish. Half Irish. Half
Get
Irish.
in my
half
belly!
Irish. Half Irish.
Watch your back.
Half Irish.
Into the
For anyone unfamiliar,
Watch
half
your
Irish.
belly.
More important things to cry about.
Half Irish.
This
half
is a
Irish.
picture of what a hungry Irish child looks like. Fight the occupation! Fight the occupation!
And I don't know what happened, but Ian suddenly throws away that whole political angle on that issue. Maybe he blacked out, maybe he had a stroke, but it looks like he forgot what he was saying, because he suddenly ends this whole monologue with him acting stupid and saying, "You're angry just because we follow people? Oh, I don't understand it. You are crazy just because we follow people? Oh, man."
So yes, you caught us. We're not gonna run to your defense when, I don't know, we follow people? We be following. That's one fucked up thing that you can say about Anissa and I, is when we're on Twitter, we do be following.
You can tell Ian is trying to run two narratives at once and he's getting tangled up, and so is the viewer. So which is it? Is it A, there is some deep moral political reason you didn't want to defend your friends? Or B, Ethan and Ila are just crazy and decided out of nowhere that you're no longer friends, all because you happen to follow denims. Even if we accept A and B as true, it just kinda proves that Ethan and Ila were right about you. And thankfully, Ian is here to help because he literally explains why they were right in the next moment.
Our silence means something. It means that we would like to pause this relationship until you figure your shit out. And then maybe we can find a moment in time, I don't know how long it'll be, but a moment in time in the future where things are a little bit easier to broach.
Yes, you wanted to distance yourself, have nothing to do with them. But God forbid they say out loud that you're not friends anymore. Then it's time to make a content cop on them. Then they are crazy for bringing that up. This whole video is filled with moments where Ian briefly admits that they could have been better friends.
Would it have been nicer and more supportive to say, we don't agree with the things he's saying and we support Ethan and Ila? Sure. Like, yeah, that would have been a nicer thing to say.
But he only says that as a setup, just so he can immediately reject the blame. He damns the entire failure of the friendship on Ethan and Ela for simply noticing the lack of effort and calling it what it was.
But you've insisted that this is an important thing to address. I would have been perfectly fine with you not blasting me on your Instagram story. I would have been perfectly fine with you not blasting me and my wife on your podcast twice.
I already mentioned it before, I also don't think they should have gone public with this issue, but the problem is your entire video makes them look more right.
Our silence means something.
And you openly admit that you didn't want to support them, so you arguing with them while admitting they were right all along.
I feel very insulted and I feel defensive.
And that's the real reason why this video exists. Not because they were wrong, but because they hurt your ego and you felt the need to defend your character.
And I feel like I am speaking up for a lot of people who have problems with you and a lot of people who have been on the receiving end of your harassment.
No, let's be real. You feel hurt. It's about your wound. Maybe you wanted to make a point about how they hurt other people too, but all you ended up showing is that they had a reason to be upset with you. And you keep on proving that point over and over in this video.
She could say so much, and it would make her a little bit uncomfortable, right? It's not comfortable. She'll get a little bit of shit.
Yeah, just for
but
saying
that would be commendable.
And by the way, it kind of speaks for itself that saying, hey, their house is clean, they're actually good people, like that's going to get you shit. That kind of says it all, doesn't it?
There isn't a single person that I respect who would give a fuck if I publicly said that Ethan and Ela are great with their kids, Ethan and Ela didn't kill their dog, and Ethan and Ela wipe their asses or don't have giardia or whatever the prompt is. No one would care. The only person who would care is me, because I'm like, why did I tweet this out?
You know who would care about this? Probably Ethan and Ela. It would have meant something to them to feel like it's not just them versus the entire world. Like someone wasn't afraid to support them publicly. But no, to you, that's just being someone's lapdog.
I'm not tweeting out because I'm not your fucking lapdog. That's why I'm not tweeting it out. I'm not saying it to my audience because I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, right. You don't give a fuck. Thanks for being honest for a moment. In fact, you seem proud of how little you care. It somehow offends you to even consider doing someone a favor. They asked. You didn't have to say yes. But if saying anything publicly was that hard and uncomfortable for you, then think for a moment. Maybe you really were a shitty friend. Ian seems to have some weird obsession in this video with following people on Twitter.
We do be following.
He somehow convinced himself that this is the core of the issue. And based on that he frames Ethan as unhinged for saying that he no longer wants to be friends with him. What's hilarious is that literally seconds later Ian confirms that he is not just only following Denims and Frogan, but also that they have a friendly relation.
Now I'm not going to sugarcoat it, we are friends with Denims.
So once again he builds an argument that he immediately undermines.
I don't know, we follow people? Now I'm not going to sugarcoat it, we are friends, we be following.
Friends?
That's one fucked up thing that you can say about Anissa and I, is we are friends with Denims.
Ian fully convinced that the whole fallout was caused by him following Froggy and Denims and nothing else, stretches this strawman to its limits. He even includes an entire segment showing who follows whom on Twitter, as if it proves anything.
Not a good start. Love of the H3 podcast. You are following Frogan, so that means that you are anti-Ethan. Sam, Morg Pie, friend of the show. Olivia, Ian, Daily Dose of Internet, is anti-Ethan.
Then he builds yet another false argument, that there are creators who are anti-Ethan, and Ethan never calls them out because they are more famous, implying Ethan is a coward for not going after bigger targets.
You have this other tier of creators that exist below Hassan but are still anti-Ethan, but Ethan really doesn't want to bring your attention to these ones because it's kind of unpopular, you know? A lot of them are famous. It's no coincidence that Ethan stays silent when these powerful, popular men are supporting Hassan. It's because Ethan is a coward. He's a bitch-made coward.
But the issue here is that Ethan has talked about people like Theo Vaughn and Jeff Wittek when they collaborated with Hassan. So again, Ian's imaginary argument doesn't even line up with reality. This whole segment is designed to push the idea that Ethan only criticizes smaller creators. But come on, there's plenty of proof that he regularly calls out people who are just as famous or more famous than he is. The real problem, Ian, is that Ethan called you out because I think he actually saw you as a friend and felt disappointed. Other people you mentioned probably don't matter to him personally, the way you did. Ian's video was supposed to have a central feature, He wanted to be a snarky little goblin and undermine the words of a well-known YouTube psychologist, who had previously praised Ethan's apology for a pretty unpleasant podcast moment from years ago.
There's this incident on the podcast where they were reacting to Cutie Cinderella, and Ethan was laughing during it. So that ended up being a pretty important wake-up call for Ethan. He made an apology video directed at Cutie Cinderella, and it was graded by a professional psychologist, Dr. Kirk Honda of Psychology in Seattle, and Ethan got an A+ rating.
In terms of a public apology, this is A+.
Ethan won't stop talking about his A+ rating.
You know he rated my apology to Cutie Cinderella a perfect score? A perfect 10.
A perfect 10 out of 10?
Literally 10.
I was trying really hard to think about an impactful moment during this video. Like, could I do something that would really wake Ethan up? And I don't know if this came from a good place or not, but I came up with the idea of getting Ethan's grade changed from an A to a B at least. And I don't know if this came from a good place or not.
It came out of your ass. Because even if he did retract his original rating, what would that prove?
Grade changed from an A to a B at least.
Xander! Xander!
What is this propaganda video? I would love to see that. Psychology in Seattle, if you have that video, please send it or publish it somewhere. Psychology in Seattle calmly refuses to take the bait, reminding Ian that his original evaluation was based on the apology itself, not on who Ethan is as a person.
Guests have a policy that when there is a grade for an apology, I am just grading that discrete apology as I see it without taking any consideration of prior or future behavior. If you're wanting me to comment on the overall behavior or the recent behavior from the clips that you have shown me, I believe that Ethan is a good person and that eventually he will feel sorrow and will feel sorry and will apologize. And I will be there to evaluate that apology when it happens, which I know it will.
Seriously, why did you even include this part in the video? It completely backfires and only exposes you as manipulative and incompetent. You even insult him afterwards and act annoyed that he didn't become, as you like to say it, your lapdog.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Unfortunately, Kirk did not change his grade, but that's okay, because this is the internet. Anyone can have their own official apology rating system. When Psychology in Seattle was watching these video clips of Ethan, he said that it looks like Ethan could just use a hug. Now, of course, it kind of pisses me off to hear that shit, because I'm like, what are we doing? What are we saying? He needs a hug? No, he doesn't need a hug. He needs a good fucking ass whooping is what he needs. Fucking ass whooping is what he needs.
Fucking ass whooping. Ass whooping is what he needs.
He said that it looks like Ethan could just use a hug. Now, of course, it kind of pisses me off to hear that shit, because I'm like, what are we doing? What are we saying? He needs a hug? No, he doesn't need a hug. He needs a good fucking ass whooping is what he needs.
One of my friends got tear gassed a couple days ago. So, yep.
Dude, I kind of wish I was there.
Yeah.
Because I think it would be really fucking sweet to throw the tear gas back at him. Because I think it would be really fucking sweet to throw the tear gas back at him. Because I think it would be really fucking sweet to throw the tear gas back at him.
Look how tough he made himself look in the thumbnail. Those cool scars. And he smokes cigarette? He must be the toughest guy in the world. And he even smacks Ethan on the head? Hell yeah!
I think something that's very important to me in bringing back Content Cop is to be fair. I think that was something that was not illustrated in previous Content Cops.
Well, maybe you wanted this to be fair, but sadly it is not. This entire video is about your head ego. It looks like most of the clips you used were pulled from posts that had already portrayed Ethan negatively. And you don't even acknowledge the real-life consequences of the harassment campaign against A3. You completely ignore it. This is the first Content Cop you've made about someone who actually hurt you personally. A former friend. The entire first half of the video is just a reaction to Ethan and Ila calling you spineless and saying you're not friends anymore. So yeah, this is by far the least objective Content Cop you've ever made. And since the therapist segment flopped, Ian shifts to a new theme. A3 enemies saying something nice about Ethan. You know, right after we saw this.
In the spirit of Kirk saying that it looks like Ethan could just use a hug, I have challenged some of his most powerful haters to put down the haterade and just say something nice and charitable about him because I think he deserves it.
And beside the fact that none of these people have anything interesting to say, because they never do, you decided to show this weird clip in this section.
You know, I also see the dynamic of Ethan and Eli. Like, fuck, like, it's really hard to be a couple online and see people attacking your partner, and it's like, okay, like if you come to their defense.
Some people laughed at Ian crying in this clip. Others defended him by saying men can cry too. But let's look at it objectively. You traveled to Seattle to convince a therapist to downgrade Ethan's apology, showed him a propaganda video you recorded in front of a green screen. He declined, and then you started crying and talking about your personal problems? I mean, what are you doing? Just take a quick look at yourself. It's just sad. And you yourself added this segment into your video. It was your conscious decision. And you just added it out of context while pushing the idea that Ethan is the emotionally unstable one.
Just say something nice and charitable about him because I think he deserves it.
Is this supposed to be Ian saying nice things about Ethan, like other people in this segment?
You know, I also see the dynamic of Ethan and Eli.
I think he might just accidentally reveal the real root of his resentment towards Ethan and Eli. I don't quite understand what he's even saying. Is watching Ethan and Eli's relationship hurt you?
Really hard to be a couple online and see people attacking your partner, and it's like, okay, like if you come to their defense, that doesn't always help them.
I'm not denying that you and Anissa have it tough, but what does this clip add to your arguments? There has to be a reason he included this, right? Unless the point was to show the world how sensitive you are after acting like a prick for an hour. Honestly, I don't know. If anyone's watching has ideas, please let me know in the comments, because maybe I'm missing something here. Okay, we finally walked through this valley of cringe and death together. Ian and Anissa could have come out of this situation with iDubbbz. They could have made a video in tone of I miss the old iDubbbz, just saying that they no longer feel comfortable with Ethan and Eli's recent behavior or opinions, and that at this point it doesn't make sense to continue a friendship. That's it. No one could argue with that, and there would be nothing to critique. You would just be expressing your feelings. But in doing so, you would be kind of admitting that Ethan was right to feel like the friendship was over. But no, admitting that someone was even partially right about you, that's not something someone like iDubbbz can do. So instead, in effort to discredit Ethan's words, you made a video that actually accidentally proves him right. Rather than calmly expressing where you stand, you choose to throw a bizarre cringe-filled circus. You danced around like an idiot, paraded your motives for the world to see, and flat out admitted that you don't give a shit about them and that you never did.
I'm not saying it to my audience because I don't give a fuck.
All of which made you look way worse than anything Ethan or Eli could have ever said about you. Of course, had you gone with the video I suggested, the honest version, you would have missed the chance to put on a show. I mean, this was your chance to ride in on a white horse, to resurrect Content Cop, to breathe life back into a declining channel. It was your chance to once again feel smart and beloved in the eyes of the internet, which, let's face it, hasn't been the case for a while now. So it seems that the cause of Content Cop's death was metaphorical suicide. But what were the details? What exactly led to this tragedy? Allow me to move on to the autopsy of our deceased. We have to take a closer look at the processes that were unfolding inside his head. So let me walk you through my theories and observations that stood out to me. In recent years, Ian has been hit with a flood of criticism and hate. Because he changed, because of his relationship, and because he abandoned his old formats. And I think that made him decide the best tactic was to shut himself off from criticism and anything that made him uncomfortable. You can see it in the advice he gives to H3 Podcast. For example, employees should only send Ethan positive messages, avoiding anything that might make him upset.
He has maybe set it up in such a way where his employees feel the need to send him this information. And that would be horrible. They shouldn't be doing that. They should be sending you things that are entertaining for your show that don't fucking trigger the hell out of you.
Or when he suggests avoiding topics that could trigger negative emotions.
Also, let's talk about AB and Lena, 2 Lebanese employees, and you just continue to talk about the conflict. It would be nicer, a lot nicer, for you to shut the fuck up about it.
And remember Ian's claim that Ethan spends his entire day on Twitter just to get mad? That's so pulled out of thin air, it must have been a projection. Projection of his own past struggles. I think at some point the criticism of Ian became too harsh to handle, until he finally learned that criticism won't disappear, and the only solution was to close his eyes to it. But by doing so, he also closed his eyes to criticism that might have been valid.
We had to, now that we've gone to therapy and we've worked through all these things, like, one, the videos have not stopped, right? The comments about us have not stopped. What has stopped is me caring about it, me looking at it. And when you stop, when you get the help, and you realize that this is like something that you cannot control at all, and it doesn't have to affect your life, that's the only way it gets better. Again, like, the worst thing you can do is feed into it in any way.
Yeah. It's super compelling because there is this like brain chemistry, this idea of like, I can make it go away. Like, I can make it stop.
Here's what you do.
I have the vaccine.
Yeah.
This tactic turned into a habit of nitpicking details just to dismiss them as hate or harassment. Look at the Froggy Tonic situation. He tries so hard to find some small detail that would let him reject responsibility and not even consider what was actually being said.
Why is there so much work being put into discovering this guy on Twitter who's barely getting any interactions, linking him to me and posting on the Reddit, when there's no work being put into who the fuck is the person on the Reddit who's posting this in the first place? He's reposting random troll accounts that are very easy to vet. If you click on this profile, it has a bunch of Sam Hyde adjacent posts, and it just hates Anissa and I.
Ian blocks tons of people online on a daily basis, so he won't accidentally see something that makes him uncomfortable.
Instant ban.
Also, if AB's in the chat, ban him. If AB Starkill is in the chat, ban him. Ban him and block him.
And sure, unfollowing 1 or 2 people who you don't like anymore is normal.
So yeah, he blocked that. I also learned he blocked his other greatest supporter, Harley. Harley! He blocked Harley.
Hello, Chief.
Is he just blocking all the fighters? And didn't you say he unfollowed you, maybe?
I checked after this, yeah. He unfollowed me, which, yeah, I don't know, made me a little sad, but...
what a baby! You're the guy who gets to criticize everybody. You're blocking Harley, blocking that, unfollowing AB, who's been gracious to you this entire time.
But the number of people Ian has blocked could probably set a Guinness record. And it looks like this is just his daily routine. Ian also loves to slap labels on criticism, to make sure it never penetrates his self-reflection. His favorite? Calling everybody incels.
The tattoos of the gold tooth attract a lot of hate from basically... I need to come up with another word to describe it, because I hate to necessarily lump them all together, but I essentially just want to say the incel community, because there's something about it, incel, that I feel like properly describes a group of people that have not discovered self-expression.
This narrative first popped up in his interview with Anthony Padilla, when Ian discovered that his fans were racist incel losers.
I did not like the interactions that I had with fans. There were quite a few human beings that I interacted with.
In person?
Yeah, in person, that just sucked. They just sucked because I attracted a lot of people who sucked. Some people were, as I described earlier, were very much like antisocial, weird basement dwellers. And, you know, the one time a month that they come out of their cave is going to restock on supplies at Walmart, and they run into me, their favorite YouTuber.
Which is kind of the lifestyle you were living at the time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. After having enough of those experiences and being like, these are the people that I'm attracting, these are the people that I'm entertaining, like, I need to reevaluate things.
But it wasn't really the audience that shocked him. The shock was that Ian recognized himself in them. I mean, back in 2014, Ian was the embodiment of an incel stereotype. A smug nerd telling everyone what to think. He looked like a cartoon caricature of an incel. And now, after his transformation and with a gold tooth in his mouth, he pretends he's above that. But it's not even about the fact that he is what he's trying to demonize. It's that this is just another box he built to hide from criticism. If you can just label someone's words as incel talk, then you can sleep peacefully at night. Maybe Ian just forgot that discomfort itself isn't bad, it's part of the human experience. Sticking your fingers in your ears and pretending you don't care won't change the fact that your entire attention is still fixated on that discomfort. Sometimes the best way out is through, but you, Ian, locked yourself in a room, sealed off all the windows and doors, and only then you declared yourself as the winner. Anissa and Ian mention multiple times that they hate unpredictability, when things don't go according to their plan. It's clear they feel safest living a life full of routines and labeled boxes. And when something starts slipping outside those boxes, Ian interprets it as someone doing something wrong or incorrect, something that violates the rules. That's why he feels confident enough to tell Ethan what a podcast should be. He tells him what he should and shouldn't say on his own show.
This is your emotional dumping ground. It's horrible. This is not what podcasts are.
As if there was some kind of correct formula for what a podcast's supposed to be. But he doesn't stop there. Ian even tries to tell H3 Crew what they should and shouldn't be doing.
He has maybe set it up in such a way where his employees feel the need to send him this information. And that would be horrible. They shouldn't be doing that. They should be sending you things that are entertaining for your show that don't fucking trigger the hell out of you.
He also informed us how we should and shouldn't joke around. Because when jokes don't fit Ian's internal guidebook, he simply doesn't understand them.
No, Ethan, those aren't jokes, right? When someone makes a controversial statement like that, that's not them trying to be funny. I can understand why you would conflate the two.
And if Ian doesn't get it, that means you are doing something wrong. We saw this same frustration play out when things didn't go according to Ian's internal vision. It didn't just happen in this video with Psychology in Seattle, we also saw it in the Sam Hyde documentary. Ian went in with a clear narrative he wanted to push, but once he arrived, reality didn't match the plan, and he kind of fell apart. You could literally see the confusion.
We did get duped by Sam. We didn't get pranked in quite the way we thought we were going to get pranked. It's not easy to say that I'm like happy with the conclusion because I'm still wondering kind of what's real and what's fake, legitimately.
Yeah, and he even said to one of my crew members, overheard him saying during the shoot, he said, I'm usually the puppet master in these types of situations. Which is just like, it's just like a mentally sick thing to say.
Are you serious? Yeah.
Yes.
He said, I'm usually the puppet man. That's like a sociopathic way to see the world. All the interactions you have are puppeteering.
He's got this weird little weaselly thing where he's like, in his mind, he's always running the calculation of like who looks better or some shit like that. Like who's on top right now in this situation.
So what does this kind of behavior signal? This need to dictate how others should behave, to impose your version of the world onto them. Well, it could be a few things, for example a lack of empathy, a failure to understand that other people can have different sense of humor, different styles, different visions. Ian sees himself as the smartest guy in the room, and if he doesn't get something or doesn't like it, then it must be objectively wrong. And once he's made that judgment, he feels the need to tell us all what's right and what's wrong. It seems as to Ian misunderstanding means incorrectness. Another reason might be a deep need for control. If Ian can't predict something, then that creates a kind of mental friction for him. He loses control of the room and suddenly he can't play the role of the puppet master. He treats people like pieces in his little game. But karma keeps humbling him, placing him right back on the board as a mere pawn. He's like that one annoying kid from your childhood who always told everyone what they could and couldn't do on the playground. If he presented his criticism as advice, it might be received differently, but he acts more like a movie director barking orders than someone offering critique or advice.
They shouldn't be doing that. It's horrible. This is not what podcasts are.
The issue is, Ian is not in a position to dictate anything to anyone anymore. The truth is, you've shown your cards a long time ago, my friend. Over the years, we caught a glimpse of the real you between the videos. And no one's looking to you for advice anymore. No one accepts your worldview as the right one. You've lost your place as the moral authority on the high ground, yet you keep pretending you're still up there. As you probably know, Ian has been talking a lot about empathy in recent years. At some point, he noticed a flaw in his own understanding of this basic human mechanism, and ever since then he seems obsessed with the topic. At least that's what it feels like because I constantly hear him use that word.
Very empathetic. Empathetic empathy.
But I'm still not convinced he fully understands what it means, and this video really shows it. Ian's version of understanding a situation often just means comparing it to something vaguely familiar from his own life experience.
I mean, I don't know what he's getting at here. Like, yeah, people are gaslighting you. A lot of people gaslit me when I apologized. That was actually like the #1 type of harassment I got, was people gaslighting me and taking my newfound woke ideology to its extreme. I thought the text conversation that I had with him was very empathetic. I basically just said, like, I know you and Hila are experiencing a ton of harassment, and I essentially empathize with that, and I think there's something positive to get out of the conversation.
We had to, now that we've gone to therapy and we've worked through all these things, like, one, the videos have not stopped, right? The comments about us have not stopped. What has stopped is me caring about it, me looking at it.
Obviously, it's great to show support. Like, people love that.
People are so busy, though.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not online reading tweets.
And it's always in moments that actually beg for real empathy. Honestly, a whole video is a kind of manifesto of a lack of empathy. Because if you truly believe Ethan is struggling mentally and needs help,
maybe if Ethan's able to get some help.
If you and Anissa really believe that when people pile on someone with mental health issues, it could push them towards suicide.
The last thing somebody who's going through something like that needs is more eyes on it. And more, like, people weighing in. Right? And, like, that's why I'm kind of angry that we even have to, like, talk about it here.
Then what the fuck is this video? As I already mentioned, I really liked how Psychology in Seattle handled things. That's what actual empathy looks like toward Ethan and even toward iDubbbz. And yet, even though Psychology in Seattle was basically a hand-picked example of what empathy should look like, his only takeaway was, no, I don't need empathy right now. I need to fuck him up.
What are we doing? What are we saying? He needs a hug? No, he doesn't need a hug. He needs a good fucking ass whooping is what he needs.
And I think that says more about Ian as a person than anything else. See, Ian was convinced he had unlocked empathy, that he finally understood it, that this part of his ego was now safely handled. And in that comfort he neglected the very thing he would only just begin to understand. That overconfidence is exactly what caused his empathy to regress to levels even lower than his default level. And what a perfect symbol of that regression is the fact that he returned to making Content Cop. One of the most obvious things Ian completely ignores is the scale of harassment that Ethan and the entire H3 crew are subjected to. Whether you like H3 podcasts or not, you can't deny that Ethan triggers some people like a red fabric waved in front of a bull. His critics obsess over him with the same intensity the internet once devoted to Chris Chan. Every joke is framed as violence, every step is a misstep, and they search between the lines for some kind of primal evil in that man. This isn't criticism anymore, it's obsession. And Ian and Anissa gladly use that obsession for their own goals. When asked, Ian or Anissa are of course totally against online harassment.
We don't condone harassment of
we
any
don't
kind.
condone harassment of any kind.
Of any kind, okay, period. Which is why we have not stuck our foot in any of this.
And yet Ian casually uses H3 Snack as a source for his video.
One of the users on the Snark Reddit points this out.
Not only does he use it, he uses it like he's blind to the fact that that subreddit regularly crosses the line. He can easily dig up a post about a random Redditor from the H3 community, but somehow misses all the posts calling for people to contact CPS, FBI or ICE. There is no way you're that oblivious. And this isn't just about H3 anymore. This is about understanding the broader issue. We're not talking about mean comments or surface-level criticism. We are talking about long-term campaigns against creators with real-life consequences, fueled and tolerated by places like Reddit. Because what is Snark subreddit, if not an echo chamber of people who hate specific creator? The goal of every Snark is to destroy someone's career, or to destroy the person behind it. That's why I wanted to bring up something that happened while I was writing this. Unfortunately, YouTuber Michaela Rains, founder of the Save a Fox Foundation, took her own life at the age of 31. She was someone who dedicated her life to rescuing animals. She ended her life because she couldn't cope with the harassment she faced online, and she had her own Snark subreddit, a space used to coordinate a campaign, to slander her, spread lies, and harass her. And we can't pretend this wasn't predictable. Anyone with even shred of common sense can see that these communities are ticking time bombs, existing with one goal only: to destroy. And I think I will end my analysis of iDubbbz here, at least for now. I know a lot has happened after the Content Cop, and maybe we'll return to this to break down the rest of the story. But so much has happened already that it's not material for just one video. We've gone through the most important moments of the Content Cop, but there are still a few scenes I didn't include. Mostly because they were just repeating the same arguments or were just so nonsensical they didn't add anything. But if you're hungry for more content, I made a shorter, more casual video where I go over those extra clips and it's available on my Patreon. To me, Ian is a lost person. The chaos of this video and the lack of logic behind his made-up arguments, the lack of self-awareness, are the clearest reflection of what's going on in his mind. He seems confused about what he wants to represent, and many of his recent decisions suggest a subconscious desire to self-destruct the persona he built over the past few years, especially around the whole boxing arc.
And, you know, now I'm finally back to where I started, which is making fucking Content Cop videos. I don't want to make this too ham-fisted, but I kind of do want to make it ham-fisted, because I'm like, I spent my last fucking 4 years working on this stupid boxing shit.
From the viewer's perspective, watching his content often feels like he's non-stop projecting, he's doing something clearly cringe, or even that he's crying for help. To me, the Content Cop is no more. He died a long time ago, and honestly, I hope it stays that way. There are so many shows and movie series that should have ended at the right time, but they kept going and only ruined memories we had of them. Well, it's hard to watch someone fade away, but maybe life is just a lesson on how to let things go. Or at the very least, a lesson about dealing with inevitable change.
I'm glad we could share this moment.
Yeah,
that was fun.